Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming at you live from episode 89 of Life on the Rocks with your host, Connor LaRocque. Today's featured guest in the hot seat is Mr. Stephen Sardi. How are you doing this afternoon, Mr. Sardi?
Well, considering the lockdown, actually not too bad.
Oh, that's what I like to hear. That's really good news. For anybody in the city of Greater Sudbury who currently doesn't know Stephen, he helps business owners get access to surplus cash in their company in a tax-efficient manner. This gentleman is the president of Sardi Financial Limited. To start this off, I always like to open up with the first question. Mr. Sardi, what got you started in business, my friend?
Well, during the early 1980s, I was in a business that got affected by the major recession that happened because of excessive interest rates. And my grandfather actually had sold insurance before, back in the 1930s and 40s. So I kind of went into that profession, basically for something to do, and I had a business background. So I had a ready-made pool of people I could talk to. And because they were business people, that's kind of where I started specializing, and I've continued ever since.
Oh, no, 100%.
So during that 40 years, I was in personal production. I specialized in dealing with business owners with taxation and estate planning. And then I went into management, and that's how I ended up in Sudbury from Thunder Bay. I was in management for 6 years, and the whole insurance industry changed how it was marketing its products. So I ended up with a choice of moving to Southern Ontario or going back into personal production. So I decided to do that. And since then, I've been associated with various managing general agents, which allows me to broker all kinds of different companies as far as product is concerned. And I built up over the years a resource pool of experts, both in taxation and in law, and both inside and outside the industry, and carried on from there. And I've got clients all over the province as well as in Alberta.
No, 100%. I want you to walk everybody through kind of what Sardi Financial Limited does. So I know, again, you're saying you have a team of people that deal with taxes as well as the legal side. Like, walk us through some of your daily work and what you're doing with Sardi Financial Limited.
Okay. What we do is we use solutions that are inherent, tax solutions that are inherent with the Canadian life insurance industry. Most life insurance products in Canada are tax exempt, and you can defer investment income, as well as they give you opportunities to leverage the contract and get tax-free income out of them, or at least tax-preferred income. So the clients I deal with generally have they're small business owners. They have surplus money in their corporations, and we set out a plan, do some estate planning to see what their long-term needs are, and transfer their money, which is generally in interest-bearing type of accounts, into these policies. And they're earning anywhere between 5 and 7% on a regular basis and over time, and there's no tax as far as reporting to the government. And that's very important now, especially since the government has put restrictions on how much money you can earn in your corporation before it starts digging in and clawing back your small business deduction. So if you had your money in an insurance wrapper, you wouldn't have to pay any, or you'd maintain your small business deduction, and you'd avoid the 50% investment tax on what you're earning on those investments.
Right. No, that makes perfect. Or go ahead.
I was going to say, people are always concerned about, fees that they're paying or what their actual return is. But, the single biggest, detriment to wealth creation is taxation.
Right.
And, you have to make sure that you're in a position where you're paying the least amount of tax possible. And, like with the standard thinking over the decades, it would be to take your money and buy RRSPs, business owners to get involved in various pension schemes. The problem is that you're transferring your money that you've already paid tax on into a registered vehicle. Yes, you do get a tax deduction of some sort with it, but all of a sudden now, when you go to use that money, it's fully taxable. And a lot of times when you look at the amount of tax that you're going to pay on the way out, it's generally a lot more than what you managed to deduct in the first place, especially if it's corporate money and you're paying small business rates, it's like 15%.
Right.
And then you have to pay 50 on the way back out.
Right.
So, it's a huge erosion in what you're actually going to get. Using a tax exempt life insurance policy, we can avoid most or all of that. And it's, for future income, like it is, that definitely makes a huge difference.
No, 100%. And something about the vehicles you use, I found very interesting when we had sat down and we discussed these different ideas before the interview, is that you look at the markets. So you look at COVID, all the markets are tanking. Everything's going down. It's up and down, up and down. It's been on this big rise, and then all of a sudden it's down. Something about your investment strategy we looked at, it's very straight and narrow, that you look over the years, 10 years, 20, 30 years, it's very steady. I want you to talk about that because I think it's important, especially right now with the volatility in the market. Something like a vehicle, like a life insurance policy like you're using is crucial to keep everything steady.
Oh, yes, definitely. Like, one thing about insurance investments, and we're primarily talking about whole life here, the insurance company invests your money in what is called a participating account. And that's held outside of the general revenue of the company, or the general assets of the company. And that money is in a very highly diverse portfolio. And it consists of bonds, real estate. They do buy some stocks, but it's generally for dividend producing purposes. Like, they're interested more in income than they are in capital appreciation. They buy real estate, they hold mortgages, and as I said, they hold bonds, mainly government, but there's also corporate bonds and what we call private placement, which is short-term financing for large corporations when they're doing projects. So that type of a portfolio is not correlated to the stock market. And when you get, like, I'll use 2008, for example, when the market dropped 36%, a company that I use called Equitable Life of Canada, they still made 4.95%.
Wow.
And because of the way that they're allowed to gradually take the dips and hills out of their investment performance, they were still paying 6.75% on each policy every year, all the way through all that.
No, that's huge.
Now, like you said, the stock market is up and down, and it's down right now. And most people, unfortunately, and I hope it's getting a little bit better, but in most cases, they end up buying high and selling low because they hear about how great an investment it is when everything is peaking, and then today, like you said, the market's tanked. Well, now they want to get their money out, and that's not the way to do it. This is when you should be buying stocks, not selling.
Right.
However, when you take the long-term averages, like that whole life portfolio that I was talking about, the par account, it averages about the same as the market. And right now, when you look at the averages over 25 years, right now, Equitable's account is running about 8%, and the TSX is 7.4.
Right.
And when you look at interest-bearing certificates, 5-year GICs for the past 25 years have averaged 3.3, and inflation's been 1.8. So the par account keeps up with the market, but it takes out all the volatility. The other thing is, and why it's particularly a good investment for companies, is because a lot of times that money is surplus, but they may have to use it for something. They might have a new project that comes up, they need new equipment, so on and so forth. And, with the money, once it goes into the account, it's not gonna go down. All right. Once the dividend every year is paid and the interest, that money's in the account. Like, nobody is going to take it away. So that's always there. And the business owner can access that money on either using what we call policy loans or using collateral loans, and get all that money tax free when they want to. It's kind of like operating your own bank.
Right. No, I think that's huge. Oh, that's okay. You can cut that out. No problem. There we go. No problem. I'll edit that out. But yeah, so something like operating your own bank, I mean, that's crucial too as a business owner, that we need access to funding a lot of the time. And that's a big concern, that you're trying to pull your money out of your company, then you're getting taxed on it. And if it's in a tax vehicle, let's say for instance, we use it as an example because it's so prominent, COVID. So a lot of people probably had to go into their RSPs to take money out. So a vehicle like this definitely is something that gives you access to being able to take the money out and not have to get taxed on it.
Exactly.
Yeah, with that being said, so something I find interesting, because there's not a general awareness usually to these types of policies, or they have a stigma associated with it because it has the word insurance. Everybody hates insurance companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's ever since the beginning of time. But I want you to talk about that for a second. So when you do sit down with people and you're walking them down the process, it almost seems too good to be true, right? In a lot of ways. So what are some of the things that you do to, again, mitigate and walk your clients through so that they know at the end of the day, it's like, no, this is a great investment. I mean, at the end of the day, the line's like, would you rather go from like this to this? And it's a pretty stable investment while also giving you an opportunity to take money out in the next upcoming years if you need it. So talk about that process you walk through your clients to, again, mitigate the risk, but then at the same point in time, assure them that, I mean, this is legit.
Oh, it's a matter of going through the history and showing them exactly what has happened in the past. Of course, the past is no determination of the future, but once you can see exactly what it does and how it works, like it's not for everybody. Like, first of all, you need an insurance need,
right?
Because an insurance company is not going to insure you for $1 million if you don't need the insurance coverage, because they're going on the hook to pay the $1 million if you die in a car accident the next day.
Right.
So they want, like, you do have to qualify, not only health-wise but financially. But looking at the history and the actual workings of the contract, and going through that with them and showing them the documentation that we have to assure them that everything we're doing is legitimate, and more than happy to talk with their accountants and go over it with their accountants as well.
Right. No, I think that's huge, because that's one of those things, again, you see it, it's almost like, well, this is too good to be true, that even when the markets are tanking, you're still looking at 8%, 4%, whatever the percentage point is. Yeah. And another thing I wanted to ask you about, so even for me, let's say I'm an ignorant investor. I don't know what to do. So the type of clients that you're going to be looking for, potentially, so small, medium-sized businesses. So you go look for somebody that maybe has some surplus cash in their business. And so this gives them a vehicle to invest it, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so no, okay. I just want to get a feel for it too. So because again, a lot of our audience, we have lots of business owners and entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
What would you
Well, the thing is too is that there's also different ways to set up a contract, and if you're just starting out in business or you're in an expansion mode and you really can't put the money away, we have a particular concept where you can buy a policy for the future, and we have banks set up so that they will actually pay you. You put the premium in, the next day they advance you the premium back, the money that you paid into the policy, so that you can use that in your business. And that collateral loan just builds up over time. Any interest that's payable is tax deductible because it is an investment. And you get, say, 10 years down the road, and you've decided, well, I don't really want to pay any more interest, or I don't need the insurance coverage, blah, blah, blah. You can actually cash that policy in, have the loan paid off, and end up, say, with a couple of $100,000 in equity that's paid to your company tax-free.
Huge. Wow.
Yeah.
No, especially in comparison too, if you look at the other side of it too, because I remember you were going through this with me and you showed me the numbers. Like it looks like later on down the line, the amount of money that you're going to save just in taxes alone, it's huge. Yeah, a lot of people.
Definitely.
Yeah, you see other people go into real estate vehicles, like they'll invest their money in income properties, things like that. No, I find this interesting. I want to change gears a little bit because again, we do have somewhat of a younger audience out there as well. We have a little bit of a mixed demographic. So something that is kind of important to me. So again, we're talking about getting educated. So on financial literacy, it's important. So something that you look, so you see a lot of people put a very high onus on university education. Go get your university degree, college degree. In a lot of ways, the system is almost outdated. If you look at it right now, I can go get free lectures from Harvard right now on my phone. So how do you feel about that? Like in terms of the education system, do you feel that if I'm a young student and I don't know, should I go, if I'm coming out of high school, I want to learn, should I go to university if I don't have a plan? Or college or one of those things, what would your advice be to those students trying to figure it out, quote unquote, plan the rest of their life? It's a hard question for a lot of these youngsters.
Well, that's been the hard question forever. I remember when I got out of high school, like I didn't know what I was going to do or where I was going to go. And, how often do you see somebody spend 4 or 5 years in university and go, yeah, this isn't for me. But, the one thing that we are lacking in North America, especially in Canada, are skilled trades. And for years and decades, as a matter of fact, parents, oh no, my kid's not going to become a plumber or an electrician or whatever. He's going to go to university and get a degree and become a lawyer or a doctor or whatever. And, that, as you alluded to, is kind of getting a little old, and stale. Like a client of mine and friend of mine, I should say, that we knew when we first moved to Sudbury back in '93. His son, who I've known since was a baby, he went out and decided he wanted to become a plumber.
Right.
And he's can work all the overtime that he wants. He's basically got himself fixed for life. Like last year, as a first-year plumber, he made $110,000.
Wow.
And that wasn't just going and fixing people's toilets. That he's basically a pipe fitter, an industrial plumber, and so it's working on construction jobs. Right. So it's nice, it's relatively clean compared to dealing with fixing stuff.
Yeah, no, 100%.
But, those opportunities are there. I've got major clients that are actually bringing people in from offshore because they cannot get people in Canada. Right. And when they do get people in Canada, because they're smaller businesses, they can't compete against the valleys of this world. And when their people get up and trained, and then all of a sudden we have a mining boom, well, they're coming in and stealing all their people. So they can't get mechanics, they can't get electricians, it just goes on and on and on. And, if somebody really wants, to give something a try, like there's nothing wrong with looking at trades and going into trade school if you're so inclined.
No, 100%. I mean, if the opportunity is there too, it's wide open and you can see it. And we almost, in a sense, as a culture, we have our nose up in the air. We're like, we have to go to university, and I've seen that with students over and over again.
Yeah.
And then they're looking for jobs after, and they don't find. It's like your arts degree. I have an arts degree. I was going to be a lawyer as well, and I wanted to become an entrepreneur. It was the route that made the most sense when I looked at the demographic and my high energy and my personality. I was like, you know what? I was inspired by guys that were out there in the field they were starting these companies, growing them. So to kind of transition off of that, who inspired you growing up? Like when you were looking up for mentors and role models and things like that, is there any specific people that you had looked up to or thought, wow, this is an interesting mentor or stuff like that?
Well, my grandfather and my father. My dad was in sales all his life, and he was one of the top GM salesmen in North America.
Right.
During the late 1950s, early 60s. So for me to get involved with, and as I said, my grandfather, who was basically self-educated, he sold insurance products, and he eventually became head purchasing agent for Abitibi Paper in Thunder Bay.
Wow.
I've always been taught that there's really nothing that you can't do if you put your mind to it. And if you want something and you have specific goals to reach that, really there's no stopping you. The only thing that will stop you is what's up here.
No, you're right. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. No, it's one of those things because you see a lot of people put up barriers and different things, especially to the mentality where it's like, I have to have that degree to get to the next level, or I have to do, and there's certain ways, like one of the biggest things I try to teach is the onus of being able to connect with people. So as salespeople, that's what we're doing. We're connecting, we're trying to add value. We're looking for ways that we can add something to someone's life. And I think networking is probably one of the most vital skills as a student or just even a business owner. You got to have connections, right? And that's what opens up more opportunity.
Yep.
I want you to talk something, Stephen, and not to interject, it's important to me, specifically being a salesperson as well and an entrepreneur, the sales stigma, like becoming, so if I was a student, like there's nothing, like I tell them, there's nothing wrong with going and becoming a salesperson as long as you're selling something legit and you believe in it. I mean, it's one of those things that can completely change your life. Sales changed my life. So talk about getting over that stigma, becoming a quote unquote salesperson.
Well, my grandfather always used to say, nothing happens in this world until somebody sells something.
Right.
And, it's the guy in the check suit and the cigar from the 1960s at the used car lot that everybody remembers. But, it's like my business. You can have all the education, you can be a financial planner, but if you can't put everything together and make a sale, nothing happens.
Right.
I've seen people with financial plans that have been gathering dust for 10 years on the shelf and said, well, what's in this? And I take it and read it, and there's good stuff in it. I said, why didn't you do any of this? Well, we thought about it, and then we thought about it, and I said, didn't the person tell you to do something? And they said, well, he did maybe once or twice, and that was about it. And I said, well, guess what? We're going to do everything that's in here.
Right. Exactly.
And they kind of look at you like, whoa.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. I want to ask you another question on this. I think it's important too, because you've been in business for basically 40 years. So you've seen the transition now. Like you're going back, to the time when you go to the bank and it's pen and paper, you're bringing in your check, you're not scanning it. Talk
Yep.
about the changes that you've seen in the industry today. Like it must blow your mind to see that we can pull up anything right here. Like even us being on this, back 40 years ago would be futuristic that we can have a call on a thing like this. So talk about how the markets have shifted for you, and as a business owner, how you've seen these changes and strategize to be better at what you do.
Well, like when I started in 1980, everything was calculated by hand. You did all your sales presentations by hand. We had a typing pool in our branch of 4 people that all they did was type proposals and statements, and review statements, so you could go out and see clients and potential clients. And you wrote a piece of business, even say for a $10,000 policy back then. The person had to have a medical. It took 2 months to get the thing down to head office, and then it took them 3 months to decide whether they were going to take the person. And then you delivered the policy, and you might get paid another 2 or 3 months down the road.
Right.
And it's just gone leaps and bounds. Like I remember when we first got the internet at the Manulife office in 1997. Like it was just, it was a big deal.
Right. Yeah. I can only imagine.
And the thing is, there's lots of product that we sell today that you couldn't sell back then because you couldn't illustrate it.
Right.
It took computerization to be able to make these proposals efficiently so that you could actually explain the contract and the company could administer the contract properly. And like you said, with technology and selling, it's I'm looking at some things right now to do actual webinars because of COVID online for people, and I've done sales interviews online. That was never even heard of even 3 or 4 years ago. It's just new technology, and it's come up. For example, I told you that first example when I first started about how long the sales process was. Well, right now, if you want to buy an insurance policy right now, Connor, like I can get it started. I can email you a signature thing, which will have all of the proposals and everything on it. You answer the medical questions. It comes back to me. I make sure everything is good on it. We go click on the button because you're giving me your bank information. Goes through, it gets computer underwritten, and because if it's in the right limits, and all of a sudden I get a ding and you're approved.
Right.
And you're covered. Yeah. And if we did that, say on Thursday instead of Friday, I'd get paid for it Monday.
Right.
Yeah. It's
pretty wild.
And you'd have your policy contract emailed to you by Monday.
Pretty crazy.
So I think the thing is that, and one thing I've always done is I've embraced the change and kept up with the technology. Back in 80, I guess it was 85, we got laptop computers, and a lot of people were really uncomfortable with them, but the thing is that, you could take your computer on an interview with you and say, oh, you want this? Oh, you want to make this change? Okay. And here it is, and that was just basically, basic programming. We had dial-up modems so that if you needed something from head office, you could plug it into their phone line and wait for 15 minutes while it spit out some information.
Right.
But, it has, excuse me.
Oh, no problem.
Sorry about that. No, I'll have to edit that one out.
Oh, no problem.
Okay. So like I was saying, you have to, you got to embrace change, and you have to be accepting of technology. And, every time, people always ask me, you've seen so much change, you've seen, on the technological basis, and you've seen so much change as far as legislation and, different changes in the rules. And the thing is, if you embrace it, you can always move forward. Like, as far as technology, like, this is fantastic, this stuff. Like, it makes it much easier to work. I've got clients in Alberta, if they need something, we can do a quick call on the computer and go through what we need to go through, and it's done. I don't have to fly to Edmonton or Calgary. And even this interview here, like, we're all locked down. Normally, back in the day when I was running TV commercials in Thunder Bay, like, you had to go down to the studio and they had to set it up. They had a cameraman, a director, and all that stuff. And here we are.
Yeah.
You could almost do this on your cell phone.
Literally. Yeah. Even for a while, the show actually started on the cell phone. I would literally just go there, put it sideways. I had a little tripod, and that's basically how we started. So, no, it's pretty fascinating. You see it, like, and that's one of the biggest things as an entrepreneur I find is that I can be doing business with somebody in China like that. We can, even though they're in different time zones, you never have to sleep if you have a good automation process or any of this stuff going through. So,
exactly.
Yeah, you set your lead generator up. Yeah.
The one thing that has happened, though, is I think that we're all getting into information overload. Like, during a day, I can't tell you how many emails I get that are just basically emails following up on the important email, or it's stuff that has nothing to do with my life whatsoever or any of my clients, but somehow I'm on somebody's list somewhere, and you get all kinds of advertisement and what have you. And clients face the same thing. It's like, why does somebody need a quarterly statement? Like, all it does is either gives you false elation or it causes you nothing but false grief.
Right.
And it can do that within a quarter, as we've just found out.
Yeah.
If you got your statement at the end of December, oh, wow, I made 27%. And then you got it in March, well, the market went down 35, so guess what?
Yeah.
You're not feeling that good, and if you had have got your statement 2 weeks later, you would have saw that it went up 10 points, so really you didn't lose that much.
Right.
That always drives me crazy, that that because it's available, it's used all the time. And sometimes to people's detriment.
No, 100%. It's one of those things that even for us, especially the younger generation, it's just constant dings in your ear. You get the dopamine spike. You're like, oh, who's calling me? Who's texting me? I'm on Snapchat. We got Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. Like, it becomes too much. But in a way, I mean, if it's used properly, and I try to encourage as many people as possible, it's like, if you're going to sit on social media for a few hours, that's fine. But at least use it. Don't just be the consumer. At least be putting something out there. Be trying to. You could start a business right off your phone for free. It's pretty fascinating to watch. So what are my final?
Entirely.
Yeah.
It is entirely.
Yeah. One of the last questions I want to ask again is for my entrepreneurs out there, the business owners. So everybody got hit by COVID. Retail, the automotive, and every industry's been pretty much hit pretty bad. What would your advice be to the entrepreneurs and the business owners right now to stay afloat, to stay on their feet? What's the best advice you would give somebody to make sure that they get back on their feet and recover after everything is over here?
Oh, people who have money in their companies, like, it's it's just a matter of making sure you manage your cash flow, and that you don't get too ahead of yourself. And if you can, take advantage of the government opportunities. Like the
CERB.
Like that the loan system that they've got now is, you can get up to $40,000, and as long as you pay them back in 2 years, like, you only have to pay back 30.
Exactly.
Like, that's not a bad deal.
That's not a bad deal at all.
The government's never come around and given me 10 grand. They generally want 10 grand.
Right. Or more. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's funny.
Yeah.
No, it's
So, and this will come to an end. Like it will. Like it may not be tomorrow. It may not even be this until this summer. It might be the fall. Who knows? But you just have to have patience and try to work through it. And really, this is a really good time to do planning and to look at things that you normally don't have time to look at, and use that as an opportunity rather than oh, woe is me, we're all locked down and we're gonna the world's gonna end. Like,
right.
Use the time for what it is.
100%.
And it's like we said, with technology has driven us to be more busy than what we should be. So, a little bit of downtime really isn't that bad.
No, you're right. No, absolutely. No, I think that's great advice too. Get the funding, get access to the funding, and use this as a plan to move everything forward. So I just want to say to the audience out there right now, so anybody who's looking to find out more information on Mr. Sardi, so Sardi Financial Limited and his company, he deals primarily with your business owners, small business, medium-sized businesses. If you're looking for an alternative way to invest or just get more information on how you can invest and get a straight line opposed to up and down, I'm going to be tagging Mr. Sardi's Facebook page in here, and you can reach out to me personally if you'd like to get in contact with Stephen. I just want to say thank you very much for coming on the show this afternoon. It's been a pleasure, and it's awesome and refreshing to hear ways that you don't have to give your money back to the government like we always, or in a better way to keep your money, because that's the goal at the end of it, right? Is to keep the money, help people, and do those things, right?
Oh, exactly, yeah. That's the whole secret.
Exactly. No, thank you very much for your time, Stephen.
Oh, thank you. Bye now.
Anytime.